This is Designing with Purpose, where we break down the thinking behind architecture for clients, for architects, for better projects. I'm your host, Kyle Stewart, talking with the team at Thrive Architects about what actually drives great design. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Designing with Purpose. Joining me in the studio today is Angie Streckenbach of Thrive Architects, Associate Principal up in Appleton, Wisconsin, and Firm Principal Jeremy Bartlett joining us from the HQ in Waukesha today. Welcome, you guys. How are you?
Good.
Good. Coming off a Father's Day weekend, went to some racing. It was pretty fun.
All right.
Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin.
Is
it was
Thrive Architects sponsoring any race cars yet?
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to. We have a cool design. I designed a car just for fun once, so I got a great paint scheme.
Did you? All right.
If we got a racing team that wants to take us up on it.
All right. Well, stay tuned, everyone, for future updates on that. Today, though, we're talking all about adaptability, designing for the future, what clients need, not just for today, but in 5 years, 10 years from now, as office spaces grow, religious spaces grow, senior living evolves, regardless of what you're designing and what industry it is, they need to be able to adapt. And so we want to know from you guys, what is the architect's role in designing and preparing your clients for that adaptability? How do you get them thinking along those lines? Because a lot of times clients are designing for their immediate needs. They're thinking about that. I'm sure they're honed in and focused on those types of things. So what do you guys do? We'll start off with this. What do you guys do to help them maybe get out of too narrow of a focus on just what they need for today and design for what they will also need in the future?
Yeah, I think a little bit of that is just asking the question, do we have to plan for expansion? Master planning comes into that. I think that we like to at least envision, like, are we going to be putting an addition to this side of the building at some point? If you have, we could pick on specific building types or uses, like senior living or churches or office buildings or and, each of those is going to have a little bit different aspect to what their future looks like. Senior living might be regulatory focused with regulatory changes that occur, or with a church, they maybe have a great, they usually have a challenge against their budgets, right? And they might have a great program and they might have a great congregation that's growing. And it's like, well, we're going to need additional classroom space in the future. How do we do that? And it's endless as far as planning for the future. And yes, uh, every time we meet, we're having that discussion. It's just how it gets curated is different with each client based on their needs.
Angie, I know you were talking about more of the office space side of things before we started today. Can you speak to that particular arena?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's kind of like Jeremy was saying, it's approaching the strategy and asking the questions for what the future growth is of the business, or what they see as far as technology is that, depending on the type of company it is, there might be technology things that are driving the office layout to change, integrating, the technology into every room that can play into how we lay things out. How frequently they think they might be growing or changing or evolving, that goes down to how we build the walls then too. Are they drywall and stud versus furniture partitions? Because maybe it's a little bit more flexible.
What are some of the assumptions that clients come in to a design meeting with that you may have to break down in order to help them think beyond just the immediate future?
Personalities are so different, and some clients come in and they overanalyze and they have too many details, and they start the process like talking about the sink in the and really at that point we need to be talking about just like big picture and like general ideas and kind of like narrow it down. And some clients are exactly the opposite. They're very much, they have a vision, but they have no clue how to lay it out. They'll tell you that usually almost every person that comes to us that way says right from the get go, I need your help. I don't even know how to read plans. I don't know how to lay this out. I just know what I want, you know. And so yeah, it's such a wide spectrum. So the first thing is again good communication. Figure it out. You know, where does the client sit? How you know what where they are on the spectrum of like their what they've gathered so far for information, and then yeah, steering them to like what we need for the input on our side.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know last week and the last episode we talked about allowing clients to dream a little bit and bring their wish list. How much of that plays into this part of things too in terms of like you're dreaming about your ideal, finished product, and how do you take that and steer it towards something that's adaptable and allows for evolution over time?
I think the wish list is really what I wanna hear, I can scale back, I can peel back your wish list, but in order to plan for the future for somebody to hear their wish list, that helps us really, like, I wanna know that up front, even if you know you can't afford your wish list or you know you can't fit your wish list in your building, tell me it, and I can work from that. That's the more information, the better, I think, from our perspective.
That's exactly what I was gonna say too, is a lot of people I think have reservations about sharing their wish list, you know? They're like, yeah, I know we're not really gonna deal with that right now, so I don't wanna mention it." But that's a fatal flaw almost in the process because sometimes our planning up front, um, you know, we can if we know that that's coming down the road, we design it a certain way, right? And then 5 years from now when that growth happened, you don't have, like, a conference room that you wish you would have put on the other end of the building because now you wanna add on.
Where do you guys draw a line between thoughtful planning for the future and overthinking it and planning too much for the future?
Yeah, yeah, so that's a real concern, right? I think a lot of clients, I'd say it's 50-50. They're really detailed planners and they overthink everything and then they can't move forward. And that becomes a roadblock. And when you're in the middle of the process, you try to identify that. You're like, okay, I hear everything you're saying, but right now these are the immediate needs, and so we don't want to create a roadblock. We want to be able to move forward. Here's what I would do: is I would lay out. Here's what this will look like in the future. Okay, do you agree? Are we in alignment? Maybe we got 2 or 3 options. Do we have alignment in those 2 or 3 options? Which one is the best option? And now we move forward with our actual program that we can afford today. That's why you're hiring somebody that has experience, who's been working with that building type, who's seen thousands of them and gotten to be in them and involved in them and seen the from the beginning to the end and seen how it's being used. And we learn from that, and we're able to put that in the next one and make it even better. So experience is invaluable.
One other angle I thought of too as you were talking was what about, we talk about the price of materials increasing. Do you advise clients to build more now, knowing that in the
Mm.
future it's gonna cost them more, most likely?
More from the material side of things, like designing for longevity and
Yeah.
in either sustainable materials is, important and, low maintenance materials, the bricks, the metals that
Mhm.
age nicely.
When you're working with clients, helping them design for the future, obviously budget plays a role and their growth goals, etc. But there's also the idea of creating something that's timeless, something that lasts, and you guys integrate interior design. So how do you help them think through material selection and interior aesthetics that are not just going to look trendy now, but 5 years from now they're going to be disappointed that they chose those particular materials or that look or whatever?
So from an inside perspective, I think it's important to, yeah, not only factor in timeless materials, but you don't want to avoid trends, but you also don't want to design necessarily to the trends. So it's important that, our
Shag
design
carpet.
shag carpet, green
Bring it
shag
back.
carpet, that we're, a good designer is going to be able to lead you down a path where trend meets timelessness and focus more on things that may be features that can be changed out simply and not as necessarily, the driving force of the entire space is a trend, but more that we design in a timeless nature architecturally and integrate elements of the trends that appeal to that particular end user's needs, right? Not everybody needs to be trendy either. We want to make sure that it meets their brand, meets their function. We're learning more about the sustainability of, flooring materials, that everything's being recycled now. There's a lot more testing going on from a quality control perspective that we can select things that are going to last a lot longer based on the traffic patterns and everything like that. So all of those things, the flow of the spaces plays into how the materials are being selected as well.
It's a popular question, Kyle. Like I get from clients a lot when we start a process. And it'll go in two different directions really. One would be the client will ask, how can I spend the money on this building and make sure that it looks like it is meant to be here 30 years from now and not be trendy. But there are other clients who really want to be trendy and really want their building to stand out. And so we have at that moment, depending on which way they want to go, we go with the client, right? So like if they want to go trendy, for an architect, selfishly, that way is often more fun, but this way it takes us on a challenge, right? Like, how do we design something that we think in 30 years is still going to be great? And no matter what you do, and I try to break it down and be honest with clients, I like, no matter what we do, we can play it safe essentially, but no matter what we do, there are going to be a few things that you're going to go down the path 10 to 15 years and it's going to be dated. And there's really no way to honestly avoid that. Like, time moves on.
Right.
Mhm.
So we've talked about designing for adaptability in terms of business growth, senior living needs, a religious space, growth of a congregation, those types of needs. Then we've talked about aesthetics, design, trends, all that. One other thing I thought of too was kind of along the lines of sustainability, but also technology, and environmental type thinking. There's a lot of uh, trends in that way to create efficient buildings, things like that. So how do you design and help clients design in such a way that they can grow with the changing, uh, ever increasing speed of changing technology?
Yeah. I think you're asking a couple different questions. I mean, the technology question is a little complex in that none of technology we can't even predict what's going to happen in 5 years. So, like I can think back like 15 years ago, we were running cabling throughout every building everywhere, right? And now a lot of it's Wi-Fi. So, that would have saved a lot of money. But but you just can't plan for that. IT closets, we used to have we
Yep.
were having
Yeah.
these, yeah, big towers and racks and all that, and cooling, spending money on bringing cooling in to cool's rooms, and now none of that's really needed. We went to the cloud. So, I mean, some of it you just can't predict. But when we talk about the products and the technology and where that's going, I'll dish it to Angie because she's got a better handle on that than even I do. I think that's where a big conversation could be had.
Yeah, I think one thing I think you're kind of heading towards, Jeremy, was like the integration of those the I'm going to call them AV furniture walls, and just integrating in all of the, you know, whether it's charging stations or how the desking is set up to share information across teams, conference rooms with everybody having, virtual and hybrid meetings today. It's making sure that your floor boxes are in under your conference table, not just limiting yourself to one side of the room, being able to be flexible in those spaces. I think access, like Jeremy said, we can't predict what the technology is going to do, but I think the access to those controls can be kind of thoughtfully placed, if so we don't have to go hunting for things. I think our buildings, our envelopes are getting stronger from an energy perspective. Maybe they're not 120-year-old buildings anymore, but we hope they're not being tossed out, every 50 years either.
That's a whole debate too, right?
That's
The America does do a lot of design that's throwaway design, you know, and, is that is that does that really meet a sustainable practice? So that's a whole other. Okay, another episode. Here we go.
There we go. Let's write it down. Yeah, that is a
How
great
can we do
topic.
that?
I would love to hear your guys' perspective on yeah, maintaining history and designing buildings that really last, stand the test of time versus yeah, the throwaway type
Stay
design.
tuned. We'll be on that one soon.
Stay tuned for that one. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for weighing in on what is a significant topic for anybody that's beginning a project, and that is designing with the future in mind. And there's multiple ways, as we've talked about, that you guys help guide your clients through that process and making sure they're thinking about their goals, the aesthetic trends, and how to design something that's timeless, as well as thinking about sustainability and all that goes along with that as well. So appreciate you, Angie and Jeremy, for joining us today for Designing with Purpose. For those of you listening and watching, thanks a lot for spending a little bit of time with us. We will be back next week with another episode, so stay tuned. Have a great day.